two successful case studies from work comp carriers. State carriers and state funds operate under something we call the fairness principle. They really do want to make sure that the premium levels look right. So if I'm the chief underwriting officer at a state fund, I want to give premium back to an insurer just as much as I want to find policies that need additional premium. I want people to be honest with me, and I want to be honest with people. That's the fairness principle in a nutshell. In this example, a state fund asked for help to make the most efficient auditing decisions to address misclassified payroll on the policies in their book of business. Together, we looked at their set of business rules and how their team of experienced auditors was able to identify things that ought to be audited or not, and which audits should include an on-site or physical visit. This gave the carrier a baseline to work from. The next step was to layer on advanced data and analytical tools to determine how much room there was for improvement. In this case, the carrier first looked at how much additional premium per audit dollar spent would lead to a successful result, with and without using a predictive model. It turned out that by using data and analytics, they were able to find $1.70 in additional premium for every dollar they spent on physical audits. So a significant return on this front compared to their traditional auditing approach. The next piece, keeping in mind the fairness principle, was to look at an absolute value dollar change that takes into account both additional and return premium found through the auditing process. So regardless of whether it was return premium or additional premium, how much change did the carrier find when they went out to perform a physical audit compared to the cost of those audits? This allows the carrier to have a granular understanding of the profit or cost center efficiency of their overall auditing department operations. The results were 3-to-1, with an absolute dollar change improvement of $3.02 for every audit dollar spent versus using traditional business rules alone. Now you may be asking yourself, should the carrier just use the predictive model to identify policies to audit? Our recommendation is squarely no. The best outcome we see time and time again is when carriers provide advanced data and analytics as a tool for their experienced teams to leverage as a competitive advantage in the marketplace. Predictive models and external data allow you to segment your book of business and pinpoint where to take action. Your staff, armed with these insights, will determine how to move forward and what the best course of action is while maintaining your company's unique differentiation in the marketplace. Let me explain this a bit further. When using predictive analytics, one of the big benefits carriers see early on is a view of policy performance across what we call bins. A predictive analytic framework includes deciles, or bins, into which these predictive analytic technologies will categorize populations of policies. The better risks are given a score of, let's say, 1, 2, or 3. The average risks, a score of 4, 5, or 6. And the worst risks in a portfolio are given a score of 8, 9, or 10. This is just one way to think about a prediction or a predictive score. If a carrier's portfolio score is trending up, it can indicate adverse selection. If the pricing is not trending up with the portfolio score, it may indicate rate inadequacy, or what I call adverse selection inertia, which, if not proactively addressed, can mean the end of days for a carrier. This bin framework was also used to help our state fund carrier further understand the opportunity in making audit improvements. We looked at several different components of their program, and we'll cover one of those segmented views as an example of how this works in practice. When a carrier can focus on the slice of policies that fall into bins 8, 9, and 10, the results are more significant. It's really important for a state fund to look at poor performing policies especially if they're a carrier of last resort, which means they're required to take on policies that private carriers refuse to write. They have to make sure their pricing is adequately covering the exposures they're taking on. When this carrier compared the poor performing policies to the audit results they were seeing, the numbers jumped quite a bit. In this case, the carrier also included bin 1 to stay true to the fairness principle we mentioned earlier. They were historically getting about $2 in additional premium with their traditional approach, and it climbed to $3.44. And the absolute dollar change that includes additional and return premium grew from $6.31 historically to $9.33. Armed with this hard proof, the state carrier incorporated a predictive model and a predictive analytic framework to their auditing team and have enjoyed positive results since then for more than about 5 years running. Now let's switch gears and talk about a regional work comp carrier that had a different business problem they needed to solve. In this case, the carrier needed to improve their combined ratio. Their intuition was that they had significantly higher risk exposure on particular populations of policies in their portfolio. But they didn't have a great process to identify and pinpoint those policy populations to really attack the problem. This carrier didn't have the resources to physically audit every policy, so they had to identify a subset to focus their resources accordingly. There were lots of traditional business rules in play here, and lists everywhere trying to rank order which policies to physically audit, but it was a far cry from an optimized plan and a far cry from what they needed in order to get the job done. Again, it started out by creating a common definition of their baseline to decide on the best approach for improving their audit program. They realized their largest opportunity was to rank order their policies by the predicted premium difference to be gained if they chose to perform a physical audit. In that way, they were able to focus their attention on customers in need of physical audits and alleviate the need to inspect those customers with more accurate premium levels. And it worked. Again, using predictive analytics to put their policies in bins 1 through 10, physical audits were concentrated on those upper bins, 8, 9, and 10. For policies in the lower bins, only mail audits were used. That instantly saved the carrier over $1 million and decreased their overall portfolio loss ratio in the 3% loss ratio range. Think about that for a moment. Just by getting the rates right and the exposure allocations in the correct class codes right out of the gate, this carrier realized a major improvement. You can see how doing this part better frees up your underwriters to focus their attention and use their judgment on policies that will make the most difference to the performance of your portfolio. The customer wins too. Mail audits are far less cumbersome than physical audits. Reducing unnecessary audits is an important part of building customer loyalty. And in an increasingly competitive marketplace, all carriers need to clearly differentiate their value proposition to customers. So to recap, number 1, create a baseline. Where are you today? What does the efficiency of your current audit program look like? Number 2, define success criteria. How are you going to measure success of whatever new data and analytics program you put into place? Number 3, make sure you're using the analytics rigorously to help validate either the current rules that you're using or create new rules. And number 4, measure both before and after so that you can identify the incremental advantage of any new data and analytics program that you're thinking about implementing.